Think about the most violent storm you've ever seen, the kind that shakes the windows and makes you feel small. Now, imagine that storm suddenly losing its power the exact second the wind stops. That is the precise internal collapse that happens when a narcissist realizes you truly don't care anymore. For months or even years, they have been the storm in your life, whipping up chaos and keeping you in a state of constant survival. But the moment you stop reacting, the wind dies down and their power vanishes into thin air. You aren't fighting them, you aren't screaming at them, and you aren't even acknowledging them. You have simply moved into a state of absolute silence. To a narcissist, that silence is more terrifying than any loud argument or emotional outburst you could ever throw their way. A scream tells them they still have a grip on your heart. Silence tells them they have become irrelevant, and irrelevance is a narcissist's greatest fear. For these individuals, control isn't just a personality trait or a preference, it is a survival requirement. From the very first day they met you, they weren't just getting to know you, they were studying you like a predator studies its prey. They paid close attention to your insecurities, your dreams, and your deepest fears. They mapped out exactly what makes you smile, what makes you cry, and most importantly, exactly which buttons to push to get a reaction out of you. Over time, they built a customized psychological playbook designed specifically to keep you off balance. They used a calculated rotation of praise, guilt, and charm as tools to keep you under their thumb. In the beginning, it felt like deep interest or intense love. But looking back with clarity, you realize it was actually possession wrapped in the illusion of affection. They didn't want a partner, they wanted a subject who would validate their existence. You have to understand that control is the only way a narcissist actually feels alive. They have a hollow core that they can only fill by influencing the emotions of others. If they can make you chase after them, plead for their attention, or argue with them until you're blue in the face, they feel powerful. Even if you hate them with a burning passion, that hate still provides them with supply because it means they are the center of your universe. Your reaction is the fuel that feeds their ego, and your confusion is the evidence they use to prove their superiority. To them, if they can get a rise out of you, it means they still matter. They would much rather be the villain in your story than a forgotten character, because as long as you are reacting, they believe they still own a piece of your mind. But everything changes the moment you stop playing the game. When you stop explaining your side, stop defending your character, and stop justifying your actions, their entire illusion of control begins to crumble. This isn't a slow, peaceful fade. It is a violent and chaotic internal shift for the narcissist. They are highly tuned into power dynamics, and they can sense your detachment long before you even say a word. They see the way your eyes don't light up when they walk in, and they notice the way you no longer jump to defend yourself against their lies. They might put on a mask and pretend they don't notice or act like they don't care, but behind that mask, they are in a state of absolute panic. For someone who is literally addicted to power and influence, your newfound stillness is the scariest thing in the entire world. It signifies that their playbook has failed, their tools are broken, and the storm they spent so much time building has finally run out of wind. When the narcissist finally realizes that their usual tricks aren't working, and the emotional hook is truly gone, they don't just walk away quietly. Instead, they enter a phase of desperate provocation. Think of it like a fisherman who realizes the fish is no longer biting. They start jerking the line, changing the bait, and splashing the water just to get some kind of movement. They are losing their footing, and in a frantic attempt to regain balance, they will turn to the most toxic parts of their playbook. They will purposefully say something incredibly cruel, bring up a deeply personal insecurity, or drop a passive-aggressive comment that they know has cut you to the core in the past. This isn't random lashing out. It is a calculated test. They are checking to see if there is even a tiny shred of a hook left in you. They are waiting for that flicker of hurt in your eyes, or that defensive tone in your voice that tells them they still have the power to ruin your day. The moment you remain unfazed by these attacks is the moment the power dynamic shifts forever. When they throw their best insults at you and you respond with a calm, blank stare or a simple, okay, they feel an immediate sense of weakness and exposure. It is a humiliating experience for them because their entire identity is built on being the one who pulls the strings. To a narcissist, being ignored is a fate far worse than being hated. Hate is still an intense emotion. It's still a connection that they can use to stay relevant in your life. But indifference? Indifference is the ultimate signal that the game is officially over. It tells them that they no longer have a seat at the table of your life. When you reach that level of detachment, you aren't just winning an argument. You are dismantling the very foundation of their influence. You have to realize that during this collapse, they are completely incapable of self-reflection. An emotionally healthy person might sit down and think about what they did wrong to push someone away, but a narcissist will never take that path. Instead of looking inward, they will spend their energy wondering how they lost the ability to keep you hooked. Their mind will twist the reality of the situation to protect their ego at all costs. They will begin to label you as cold, heartless, disloyal, or ungrateful. They will tell anyone who listens that you have changed for the worse purely because they cannot process the devastating truth. You didn't actually change your nature. You simply woke up to their exploitation. This refusal to see the truth is their final defense mechanism. By blaming you for being, quote, unfeeling, they avoid having to face the fact that their manipulation failed because you grew stronger. They will double down on their provocations, hoping that if they push just a little harder or stay cold just a little longer, you'll eventually break and return to the old patterns. But they are fighting a losing battle. Once you see the man behind the curtain, the magic of their manipulation disappears. Your silence and your lack of reaction act as a mirror that reflects their own emptiness back at them. And for a narcissist, that is the most unbearable sight of all. You have moved from being a source of fuel to being a person they can no longer touch. And that realization is what ultimately leaves them powerless in the wind. The moment a narcissist accepts that they can no longer pull your strings, they don't just pack up and leave. They pivot to a new strategy called narrative control. Since they've lost the power to manage your internal world, they become obsessed with managing the external world's perception of the situation. This is where the mask slips entirely, and they transform into full-time actors. You'll see them suddenly flaunting a new relationship that seems perfect just days after you detached, or they'll begin loudly celebrating massive life achievements and sudden bursts of joy on social media. It feels personal because it is. It's pure theater, staged for an audience of one, you. Every post, every status update, and every mutual friend they run into is a calculated move designed to trigger your jealousy, spark your doubt, or make you feel like you were the problem all along. They're desperately trying to win the breakup by appearing like they've never been better, all because they can't stand the thought of you being the one who moved on first. This rewriting of history is a frantic attempt to protect their fragile ego from the truth. In their version of the story, they weren't the ones who were toxic or manipulative. They were the ones who finally found peace or escaped your negativity. They will weave a complex tale where they are the hero or the long-suffering victim, and you are the cold, unfeeling villain. They do this because if they can control how other people see the end of the relationship, they can pretend they still have some form of power. They are terrified of being seen as a failure, or even worse, as someone who was simply seen through and rejected. By creating this fake reality, they convince themselves and anyone else who will listen that they are still the ones in the driver's seat. It is a desperate, exhausting performance meant to fill the void that your absence left behind. But it's built on a foundation of lies that can only hold up as long as people believe the act. What the narcissist completely fails to understand is that by the time you reach this level of indifference, you had already finished the hardest part of the journey. While they were busy planning their next move, you were in the trenches doing the heavy emotional lifting. You've already spent the sleepless nights mourning the relationship you thought you had. You've already grieved the false hope of the person they pretended to be in the beginning. You have already cried the tears and felt the anger that they are now trying to provoke. Because you did that work, you didn't just leave, you evolved. You didn't just walk away, you woke up. They are still trying to play a game on a board that you have already walked away from, and that is why their tactics feel so hollow and transparent now. What is left in the wake of all that pain is something the narcissist can never take away: absolute clarity. And clarity is the literal death of manipulation. Once you can see the gears turning behind their joyful posts and see the desperation in their perfect new life, their power over you vanishes instantly. You no longer see a powerful manipulator. You see a panicked person trying to fix a broken image. They haven't just lost a partner or a source of emotional energy. They have lost the very fantasy of who they thought they were. Without your reaction to validate them, their superior identity starts to crack. They are forced to live in a reality where they couldn't keep you hooked, couldn't break your spirit, and couldn't stop your healing. Your peace is the ultimate evidence of their failure, and that is a truth no amount of rewriting history can ever erase. When a narcissist realizes that their charm has failed and their theatrical happiness hasn't made you jealous, they will almost always pivot to their most aggressive weapons: explosive rage or chilling, punishing silence. It is crucial to understand that neither of these reactions is a spontaneous emotional leak. They are highly calculated, strategic strikes intended to punish you for the crime of detaching. You have committed the ultimate sin in their world. You have stopped being affected by them. This triggers what psychologists call a narcissistic injury, because their entire sense of self is built on the belief that they are superior and all-powerful. Your indifference acts like a mirror that shows them their own insignificance. That blow to their ego doesn't just sting, it burns. Since they lack the emotional maturity to handle that pain, they project it outward onto you with a ferocity that is often terrifying and completely disproportionate to the situation. This narcissistic rage is not like the normal anger you see in healthy people. It is explosive, irrational, and designed to shock your system. They will scream, they will use character assassination, and they will bring up things you told them in confidence just to cut you as deep as possible. The goal here isn't to solve a problem or express a feeling. The goal is to reawaken you. They want to scare you or hurt you so badly that you have no choice but to engage with them, even if that engagement is you crying, shaking, or defending yourself. To a narcissist, a negative emotional reaction is still a win, because it proves they can still dominate your internal state. They would rather see you devastated than see you calm, because your devastation is proof of their power. They are essentially trying to reset the dynamic by forcing you back into a position of fear and submission. However, if their fire doesn't burn you, if you remain calm, collected, and unresponsive to their fury, the narcissist will suddenly flip the switch from fire to ice. This is the transition into the silent treatment. But it's not the kind of silence a healthy person takes to cool down or reflect. This is a punishing, weaponized silence. It is an intentional emotional freeze-out designed to make you feel completely invisible, unworthy, and erased. By withdrawing all communication and affection, they are trying to create a psychological void in your life. They want you to sit in that darkness and feel the weight of their absence until the loneliness and insecurity become so unbearable that you come crawling back, begging for even a crumb of their attention. They want you to be the one to break the silence so that they can reclaim the high ground and prove that you still need them to feel seen. What they don't realize is that once you understand the mechanics of this game, the trap loses all its power. You begin to see that their explosive rage is nothing more than the desperate noise of a toddler throwing a tantrum because they lost their favorite toy. It's just sound and fury signifying nothing. Likewise, you start to realize that their punishing silence isn't a void you need to fill. It is actually a gift of peace and space. The silence they intended as a prison actually becomes the very sanctuary where you can finally hear your own thoughts again. When you no longer fear their anger and you no longer crave their presence, the narcissist becomes completely powerless. Their outbursts become background noise, and their absence becomes your freedom. By refusing to be shocked by the rage or starved by the silence, you finally break the cycle and take back the keys to your own life. The truth is, your indifference is the one thing a narcissist cannot survive. They can handle your anger, they can manipulate your sadness, and they can even feed off your hate, but they have no defense against your peace. When you finally stop reacting, you aren't just walking away from a toxic person. You are reclaiming the emotional energy you've spent years pouring into a bottomless pit. You are choosing to stop being the audience for a performance that was never meant to love you, only to control you. The moment you realize that their rage is just noise and their silence is a gift, the chains finally break. You don't win by out-arguing them or by proving them wrong. You win by becoming so healthy and so focused on your own growth that they simply no longer matter. Now it is time to turn that focus entirely back onto yourself. If this message resonated with you, let it be the final confirmation you need to stay the course and trust your clarity. Don't let the guilt or the theater pull you back into the storm. You've worked too hard to find this calm. If you found value in this breakdown and want more direct strategies on how to protect your peace and navigate complex personality dynamics, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. Leave a comment below with the word freedom if you are choosing your peace over their chaos today. Your journey to healing starts the second you decide their game is over, and we are here to walk that path with you every step of the way.